Yo, Blip here, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today, I have a special project I've been working on for a while, which is like a class simulator. I'm remaking like the classes in WoW so I can like rework them and show them. I'll show you guys what I think would be cool for class design. But that's not what I want to show you today. Today I want to show you this talent tree I've been working on. Now this talent tree is like a remake of the Dragonflight talent tree we'll be getting, because that talent tree has a lot of issues. I made a video on that if you want to check it out. And yeah, today I'll be going through the changes I've made to this tree to make it more diverse and more options, and also the changes I've made to like add new talents. As you can see here on the sides, I've added some new stuff, and I've kept mostly the bottom the same. That's because I didn't find a lot of issues, but I have changed how some of it works. And I'll go through all of that with you now. Start off with, we have Pyroblast, to be expected, and Hot Streak. Hot Streak was down here before. I felt like that was not very good because it meant that a new player would get it quite late in their rotation, and Hot Streak is kind of essential for Fire Mage. Also, when I made these changes on the side, having Hot Streak down here meant you could actually skip taking Hot Streak, and a new player leveling up would probably suffer quite a lot not taking Hot Streak, so I put it here at the top. Also, I've moved Critical Mass up here as well. Now, Critical Mass was a passive that Fire Mages had that just gave them, as you can see here, their critical strike chance, and is quite essential for Fire Mage because without it you just don't crit at all, and it was all the way down here for some reason. So I've just moved it up here where it's an essential talent to have, so it needed to be higher up in my opinion. So here it is. Fire Blast used to be where Scorch is now. I put Fire Blast here because it made more sense. It's next to Flame On as well, so that's quite nice. Also, I combined it into one talent. Instead of having like 3 that you needed to select to get it to base functionality, instead this just gives you Fire Blast as it is currently on retail. I think that's a lot more fair for the players, and it's nicer having it in one talent than having to use 3 points in, you know, just remaking Fire Blast. Enhanced Pyrokinetics I kept the same, because it's an essential spell for Fire Mage. Without it we just wouldn't crit as much, and the rotation, you could get really unlucky with no fireball crits for like a minute straight if you were that unlucky. So this is a nice talent to have. And obviously Scorch, as I just spoke about. Now, before we go further, I'm going to show you what I've done with the right side here. And also something really cool with talent tree that I've made is that you can actually skip taking Flame Strike if you want to. I don't think you can skip taking Scorch though. If you wanted to do that, you would have to go down one of these 2 paths here. But Flame Strike, you know, is not something we always want to use in every situation. Like it can be useful in PvP if you want to hit like a healer out of line of sight, but you don't really want to drop a hot streak on that most of the time, so you might want to take it for some fights, but not for all. In PvE situations, you know, single target fights, you're not really going to want Flame Strike at all. So by making it optional here, by putting it here, the player gets more freedom to, you know, choose what they want. Now, if you don't want to take Flame Strike, but you want some AoE option, I made a new talent here called Blast Potential. If Ignite is present on your target, Fire Blast makes your Ignite erupt, dealing 5% of your Ignite's total value as additional fire damage to enemies within 10 yards. So, for example, there might be a few ads that are on a fight and you don't really want to focus them, you have to like combust into a single target, build up a big Ignite, then having this Blast Potential talent with like, you know, Flame On, so you have more charges, could be pretty good, because then you're you're cleaving with your Ignite, but so you're still getting a bit of AoE damage, and this fire damage is just radiating from your target, while you're also tunneling into them and doing the most damage possible like that. And I think that's a really cool little AoE talent. So I added it here on the side. And obviously we can take Flame Strike. And there used to be 2 Flame Strike talents here, one obviously Flame Strike and then a passive to upgrade it. It was kind of pointless in my opinion and just felt like a double waste of time, so I just baked that into the base Flame Strike to add a new talent here. And this new talent is called Flame Expulsion. Hot Streak empowered Pyroblasts unleash a small Flame Strike on impact, dealing 20% spell power, fire damage within an 8-yard radius around your target. So this would be pretty good again for like having cleave when you want a single target and add down a Mythic Plus or something. And it's just a nice, again, like a bit of AoE damage for Fire Mage when they're doing their full single target rotation. And I just like that, having that like cleave fire damage going on. It does feel a bit weird, I will admit, like having this after Flame Strike, because it doesn't really do anything for Flame Strike. But at the same time, this could be changed. Also, you know, work on Flame Strike, so your Flame Strikes also spawn another smaller Flame Strike for 20% of spell power. I think that might have been a talent or trait in the past somewhere, but I can't remember. Either way, I think this talent's a nice little addition, and it's just, yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it'd look cool and feel cool to use in a Mythic Plus situation, or a Cleave situation. To the right here, I made a new talent. We used to have a Blazing Barrier talent here that increased the reflect damage when you were attacked by melee attacks. And that's really useless in PvE and PvP because your shield really doesn't last that long and it can be, purged and stolen, and it was just an awful talent that you would never ever take. With this now, I've remade. I made two options here because this is the first option I've made is quite intense and it will change the playstyle quite a lot for Mage. So reactivating is called Explosive Blaze. Reactivating a Blazing Barrier while it's active instead detonates it, dealing fire damage based upon the absorption remaining to all enemies within 10 yards. Blazing Barrier now also has a 24-second duration. The 24-second duration is because otherwise it could be quite clunky if your Blazing Barrier comes off cooldown, but you still can use Explosive Blaze. How does it work? Does it just cancel your barrier and put a new one on, or so having that 24-second duration is kind of a trade-off. And at the same time, the nice thing about Explosive Blaze is that you get to decide if you want to use your shield for offensive capabilities or defensive capabilities. If you want to get a bit of more AoE damage, then you can just blow up one of your defensives like that. The only problem is obviously your Blazing Barrier is like a 60k absorb right now, I think. And yeah, as you can probably imagine, 60k damage to all enemy targets, and if that crits, that's like 120k damage from one ability on the 24-second cooldown. It'll need tuning, but I think it's cool. And it also means, it's a risky thing as well, because you have to go into melee to use it. But at the same time, I could see people being a bit frustrated having to play this because you would have to be a melee mage. Then what's the point of being range? And then again, in Mythic Plus, you're normally playing with Dragon's Breath, and you want to be close to the target, so you can do some interrupting like that. So, some pull and tug here. I think it's cool, I think it has potential, but I could see some people not liking it. So I made another one here, which is Fire Together Strong. Blazing Barrier now also absorbs 10% of your ignite from all targets within 10 yards, dealing the damage dealt instantly, and adding the damage dealt to your current absorption. So this is like a, again, it's kind of, you have to go into melee, but you're getting a stronger defensive from it, and you're also doing, some of your ignite damage instantly. There probably need to be some additional damage in this, otherwise it doesn't really do anything if the mobs are living for the full duration of your ignite anyway. But otherwise I think it's quite cool, just snapping your ignite like that and just seeing all those numbers pop when you pop your barrier close, and then like seeing your absorption get bigger. I think that could be pretty cool, like thematically, because you're like absorbing the fire to empower your shield. Yeah, let me know what you think of these two. Obviously there's many ideas that people could come up with for this replacement talent, even maybe not a barrier related talent at all. But I think, there's potential with a barrier talent, so I made these two instead. Now I didn't change anything about Flame On, apart from it has 1 point now you can spin instead of 2, because I put 1 point back into Fire Blast, 1 charge back into Fire Blast, sorry. And then Flame Patch, it's just Pyroblast, but this is still Flame Patch, I've got to rename it before doing this, I guess. Anyway. Yeah, this is still Flame Patch, it works exactly as it does on retail with the talent, and I think it's pretty cool. And also because it allows you to take this Incendiary Eruptions, which, as you've probably read about, is a very interesting talent where your Flame Patch can have your target erupt into a living bomb. And I think that is a really fun talent to see go off during the Mythic Plus, for example. Then we have Molten Skyfall. Now I could have changed this, but honestly, I felt like it would be better to keep it, simply because mages, we've never used Molten Skyfall. It's been around like on and off for like 6 years now, and I don't think I've ever seen the mage use this, because it's never been good, and it's, you can never really hold your fireballs. It just feels bad. Like if you know your combustion's coming up in 10 seconds and you have like 29 fireballs cast, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna have to scorch the boss until you can, launch that meteor during your combustion with Rune of Power. So it's got some clunkiness there. I think maybe as a talent like this, it could see some use in AoE and single target situations. So, I thought we could just leave this in here, potentially for a patch, see how it performs, and if it is just not being taken at all because it's just that bad, just replace it with something else. But for now, I think it's probably okay to leave it in there as like a potential talent and just see how it goes. Living Bomb, obviously I'm not going to change. I think Living Bomb is completely fine as it is. Blaster Master as well. I was a bit unsure if we should keep this. We've had it for so long now, since like the start of BFA pretty much. And yeah, I like it just because it means you have bigger ignites during your combustion. And I've also added a new talent that you might have noticed on this tree, which I will get to later, that has synergy with having bigger ignites. So then as we go further down, we have Master of Flame. So the only change I made to this is, as it works on Dragonflight right now, you have a when you use Fire Blast on your target of your Ignite, it spreads it to 4 nearby targets, so this would spread it to 4 more targets during combustion only. I didn't like that because it just feels like a waste of a talent, because you don't... if you're playing around your Ignite, you kind of want your Ignite to spread to more targets more often anyway, and just doing it during combustion, that feels kind of cheap. I've just changed it simply so it works all the time, so now instead of 4 targets it spreads to 8 additional targets if you have this talent selected, even outside of combustion. Then we get to Pyromaniac. The Pyromaniac is an awful talent, and the main reason for this is just because of when you launch a fireball with a hot streak pyroblast together for that higher chance of critting and getting another hot streak. This can proc, and if that hot streak pyroblast and that fireball were to crit, this Pyromaniac would technically proc and do nothing because it's just overwriting your hot streak you just generated. So it's a really weird talent that just doesn't really fit in a rotation. I've always suggested they change this so it's like an active instead, so when it procs you store an active that you can use that then buffs your next Pyroblast or Hot Streak. So that could be something they could do for this talent. But at the moment I've swapped it around with Pyroclasm because it made more sense over this side. And I've changed it so that it only works on Flame Strike now. But your Flame Strike also deals more damage when it procs. And this works because when you're dumping Flame Strikes in Mythic Plus, you're not getting Hot Streaks or Heating Ups generated from those Flame Strikes. So getting an instant proc again is actually pretty valuable. And then having this more damage on it is quite good. I have made a mistake here though, and that's the fact that you can skip Flame Strike and then take this, so it essentially is a dead talent, so that would need fixing. Maybe instead of just having it work for Flame Strike, they could do something with Pyroblast, making your next Pyroblast instant Pyroblast do more damage so it doesn't go crazy with Pyroclasm. Then it would still be a viable talent if you don't have Flame Strike, or just turn it into an active like I said and keep the old version of Pyromaniac, and then just whenever you want you get a hot streak when you activate the button, and that would work as well. Then we've got Feathered Incantation. It's not a very interesting talent. I decided to keep it though because it just makes sense. It has synergy with Fire Frenzy, and it also just puts emphasis on that we're a crit class because we get more damage when we're in a combustion and whatnot, and when we chain crits. So yeah, I think this was a fine thing to keep. And then obviously Fire Frenzy I kept the same as well, because I think Fire Frenzy can be a pretty fun talent when it works out pretty well and like procs at the right time in Mythic Plus, so I felt like it was fine to leave this here. Oh, and that's the right side of the talent tree. now we go down the left side. So first, on this skippable row here, I've made a talent called Searing Impact. Now this might be overtuned, but it kind of shows you what kind of idea I had with it. And that's that Scorch now has a 12-second cooldown, but deals 300% of spell power damage and stuns your target for 1 second, and also generates a hot streak. So it's changing Scorch from like that spam removal spell to something you just want to be using on cooldown, and you can still plan some movement around. And it's it still has synergy with Searing Touch, for example, because then it does even more damage when it's below 30%, and it's a guaranteed crit. So the only downside to this obviously is if you're taking combustion, Scorch is pretty essential, so you can get, because it has a short cast time and you can get more hot streaks off during your combustion. So I do see like a potential issue with that, but then this also has some good use for PvP and like for priority damage, and it just changes up how Scorch works slightly. It would definitely need a lot of tuning changes, right? As it is right now, I think it would be absolutely broken, considering Pyroclasm is like 240%, I think, spell power. No, it's just 240% additional damage, but Pyroblast is like, I think it's like 100% spell power. So this would hit 3 times as hard as a Pyroblast, and then do twice that amount of damage. It would be crazy. It would actually do so much damage, but it can be tuned accordingly, and then it also generates a hot streak. So if you have to move, you can Scorch into a Pyroblast if you need to, for example. But yeah, I could see this one not being like an amazing choice, but I think it's kind of cool. Then we have Trailing Embers here. Now this is a talent that we've had in the past in BFA, I believe, and that is that Pyroblast sets all targets that pass it through a blaze, dealing fire damage over 10 seconds. This meant that while it's a burn, and I think Fire Mage should have more burn in their kit because they are a Fire Mage, it's all about burning things. So having this is like an extra little bit of AoE and damage over time we can get. And it does have some thought to it where you have to see where the mobs are positioned, and if there's a mob that's at the back you want to like chuck it through so it hits them all. I do think it'd be nice though if they made it so that the Pyroblast also does like a little AoE that applies everything to when it hits, so then because when mobs are stacked up it can be pretty clunky to try and find the one at the back, so having you know, a little AoE grace radius that will also apply this debuff to targets would be pretty good. This also changes up your AoE rotation a little bit because, you know, you'll be flame striking, but you always want to make sure you have this 10-second dot applied. And you don't lose too much from doing it because if you know, you're in combustion or something, or the Pyroblast crits, then that's giving you another heating up towards a flame strike. Then we got obviously our Firestarter Searing Touch. I didn't change any of this because these are really good talents that really like amplify Mage's playstyle, so yeah, no reason to change these. Then we got Improved Scorch. Now, Improved Scorch, I think, is completely fine. I think in my tree, though, there's so many good choices that this might be ignored, but 6% damage taken in Execute is not something you should underestimate, and the movement speed is pretty nice as well. You also might be thinking, you know, with Searing Impact it doesn't really work. Why did it change this to last for 15 seconds instead of 8 seconds? So Searing Impact can still stack it up, but you would have less, you know, grace time in using it. So you would have to use it pretty much as soon as it came off cooldown every time, which might not be, you know, the right feeling. Which is why Searing Impact might need to be reworked, but I think, you know, it's still a decent idea. Then we get down to Phoenix Flames. Now Phoenix Flames was changed so that this talent here was just an extra charge and you got 2 charges instead of 3. I felt like that sucked and that was like, what are you doing, Blizzard? So I decided to change this into a recharge talent again, basically the functionality it has now, but without the ignite spreading. And then I put Phoenix Reborn, which was down here before and didn't make sense that I actually could take it without having Phoenix Flames, up here. And now it's a 2-pointer, so you can increase the damage. This will go up to like 30% of spell power, and yeah, reduce Phoenix Flames cooldown by 10 seconds. I think this was an okay talent because it just gives you a lot more Phoenix Flames over time. And then I also changed the choose one. So Alex Rouse's Fury I kept the same because I think it's a cool talent and it works quite nicely with Phoenix Flames, and the synergy with Dragon Breath is pretty cool. And then from the Ashes I changed so it gives you more cooldown reduction. I think it's 1 second right now, and it also has that mastery buff based on how many stacks you have saved up, which is really awful because you never really want to have your stacks saved up because you always dump them in combustion. I think it's really terrible design personally. Yeah, I made sure to change this so we just get more Phoenix Flames if you take this talent. You may need tuning again because 3 seconds might be too much. You might have to go down to 2 seconds, or maybe 3 seconds would be fine. Could be pretty fun as well, so, you know, let's see how it goes, if this ever does get implemented. I almost forgot to talk about this talent. So this talent is like kind of similar to Enhanced Pyrokinetics. It's called Kindled Flame. Fireball increases the damage of your next Pyroblast by 5%, stacking up to 25%. So this is like I'm getting quite unlucky on my Fireball crits, but I'm getting, you know, more damage on my Pyroblast as a consequence of that. This also means you could have some synergy with Pyroclasm, because you may want to stack this up to the maximum and just keep casting Fireballs anyway. Don't cast the Pyroblast, and then, you know, go into your Pyroclasm Sun King's Blessing combo with a buffed up Pyroblast, and I think that could be pretty cool. But it also is just a nice talent that, you know, is like, hey, you're a bit unlucky on your Pyros, let's make up for that with a bit more damage on your next one. Then we get down to here where we used to have Phoenix Reborn, and obviously I've changed that to be here. And now I've changed it to something called Unbearable Blaze, where Pyroblast does 10% of its direct damage as additional fire damage over 6 seconds. But I don't know if Pyroblast is keeping its damage over time effect. I don't think it is going into Dragonflight, because, you know, it applies like a damage over time effect. I feel like this is a nice change to that. It keeps like more Fire Mage fantasy with more dots. And it also means that when you get like a massive Pyroclasm combo, you know, you get to still see that damage over time, a bit of it going off, and that could feel pretty cool. And again, it just adds more to that Fire Mage burning fantasy that I think should be emphasized. Then we got Controlled Destruction. I didn't change this because I think it's actually quite a cool talent that puts emphasis on Fire Mage, you know, with Firestarter and Searing Touch. So yeah, I felt like this was a fine talent to have. Then we got Sun King's Blessing, which I didn't change either because I think Sun King's Blessing is a really fun talent when paired with Pyroclasm. Okay, cool. So that's all of the left side we've covered now. As you notice as well, I have removed this link here from Phoenix Flames to this talent here, and you'll see why in a minute when we get down there, but that's because it wouldn't make sense to be able to select this without having combustion. Okay, so we go down the middle now. So we've got Cauterize, we've got Combustion, still the same as they are with the Dragonflight calculator. And then we got this talent here, which is simply just a combustion duration increase. And I can understand if some people just don't like that. But I feel like it's just useful in all situations, and you may not want to take it all the time because there, you know, are some potentially better combos. but it's still like a nice choice to have, and having longer combustions, you know, can feel quite fun. I think that also means that it would line up with Rune of Power if we had both of these points spent. Also, you can take like one talent here, which also increases your combustion duration and also gives you your mastery buff back. And I've also, yeah, and now we move on to this talent here. I've also kept Tempered Flames as it is, simply because I don't know how it would perform yet, and there are some cool Pyroblast builds that I've seen in this tree that would be really fun, and with this, you know, Tempered Flames buff, that means your Pyroclasms are going off a lot faster, and it could be a really fun Pyroclasm build that works with this. And just the Pyroblast build in general would mean that you would have less power in your combustions. It would mean your combustions are more there for getting more consistent hot streaks to get some big Pyroclasm hits off. Then we got Wildfire. I was going to change this. Honestly, after considering it a bit more, I felt like it's fine because, as I said, I made like a Ignite build where it's, you know, well, there was already like a hint towards like an Ignite build in our tree where you could get Blaster Master, get Master of Flame, get Wildfire, and your Ignite would just be a lot stronger. And also, obviously, the Combustion Duration talent here. And together that makes like an Ignite build, but it didn't really feel complete to me, and I don't think anyone would really play it that often because our Ignite is kind of watered down right now. So yeah, that's still the same. Then we have Tinder here. Tinder again, I think is a talent a lot of people were very unsure about because it is a PvP talent right now, and this obviously is getting changed to just be a talent. I think it has potential. I think, you know, if you want to go an Ignite build, which you would choose Combustion Duration for, you would take Wildfire, and if you want to go the Tempered Flames build with the Pyroblasts, you'd probably take Tinder because you're going to be casting Pyroblast more than Fireball. So it's kind of like a, hey, I took this, I go this way, or I took this, I go this way. And I think Tinder may work out in the end. And, you know, if you're playing Searing Impact, that's another spell you can press instead of Fireball. But we'll have to see. Again, I think it's in the same boat as the Molten Skyfall, where we should see how it performs in a patch, and then it gets changed if it's just not being taken or it's just not good enough. Then we get down to the bottom here with Fiery Rush and Kindling. Now I didn't change these at all, sorry the Kindling's off the screen, I didn't set up my UI properly for this. But Kindling works exactly the same, and Fiery Rush is going to work exactly the same as it says on the tooltip, where your Phoenix Flames Fire Blast will recharge 50% faster during combustion. Now why this is good is because for the Sun King's Blessing build, you kind of need Fiery Rush, because without it, you just cannot do your follow-up combustions very well. Because if you noticed on Shadowlands, you're very dependent on your Venthyr mirror to give you Fire Blast, so when you finish your combustion, you go into your next mini combustion with Sun King's Blessing with at least some Fire Blast to keep your Infernal Cascade up, and to also get more hot streaks during that combustion. And without that ability, you know, we're going to be suffering. So Fiery Rush kind of fixes that by giving us more recharge rate, so we will, you know, compared with the Flame on Fire Blast cooldown reduction, that should give us a fair amount of recharge. And then finally, the last talent that I made myself, because I felt like if there's anything I miss about Fire, it really is just the damage over time element, which you've probably noticed from this talent tree so far. So I decided to just be like, hey, let's try and return the old combustion in some form. So I made a talent called Consuming Flames. Set your target ablaze in fire, consuming your ignite on the target and applying Consuming Flames. Consuming Flames deals ignite times 3 fire damage over 10 seconds. The initial application burns so fiercely, it spreads to 2 additional targets within 8 yards. Now this talent is literally the old combustion, apart from it's also consuming your ignite now. And again, this would probably be need tuning, but I just like it because, as I said, it returns us to that ignite building days, and we can just build up a nice ignite on one target and just spread it to 2 more targets and just see those dots just tick down like mad. It's just something very satisfying I think Fire Mage has missed for a long time. So yeah, and obviously you compare this with your Blaster Master, your Wildfire, your Flame On for more generation of this. You just go crazy and building up a big ignite and then consume that ignite to make a massive dot on your target and spread it. I don't think it's possible for us to ever return to the old combustion days now, because I think Fire has changed into a more fast-paced spec in combustion, and without that it was pretty much just how Fire Mage is outside of combustion, with less hot streak generation, and just preparing for that combustion window every minute, and then popping, and then combusting, and just repeating the cycle. But yeah, that's all for this tree I put together. I think it adds a lot to Fire Mage. It gives us a lot more variation and choice. As I said, it's not perfect. It will need some changes here and there, but I think for the most part, there's enough new interesting stuff here to keep us excited and also give us, you know, some fun rotations. Like you can build that Pyroclasm build I mentioned with Kindled Flame, Unbearable Blaze, Pyroclasm, Control Destruction, Sun King's Blessing, maybe Fire Starter. You're Trailing Embers for that as well, and then you could also take Tempered Flames for like a Pyroblast build, or you can go the Ignite build where you're getting, you know, you want your Fire Blast Flame on, Blast Potential, because you're getting big Ignites and that'll give you more damage during your combustion. You're building up a big Ignite, and when your Ignite hits the largest it can be, with, you know, like your max stacks of Blaster Master, then you're going to be popping your Consuming Flames and spreading that Ignite to more targets for that big, you know, free target cleave damage. And then I've given us more options for, like, you know, tunneling, so it doesn't feel as bad when you're tunneling in Mythic Plus. You've got a bit of cleave going on. And yeah, I like Blast Potential quite a lot as well. I think it just adds a bit more flavour to Fire Mage. Yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear your feedback on this talent tree and why it shouldn't be implemented. And yeah, maybe have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.